All right, I have 7 o'clock. I know we'll have some people coming in, but I just want to start on time. We have a lot to cover tonight. We have a lot of these panelists are just incredible. And so I'm very excited to welcome everyone. Good evening. My name is Jennifer. I'm with Hope and Action Indivisible. Welcome to tonight's important and timely conversation, defending free speech. Right. We know that, that is such a timely issue right now. And we're so glad you're here. We are based in Broward County, but we have folks from all over Florida that are joining us tonight. We're gathered again tonight because something fundamental to our democracy is under threat. The right to speak freely, to question authority, and to express diverse opinions without fear of censorship or retaliation. Across the country, we're seeing increasing restrictions on speech on university campuses and public schools, in government institutions, and even in the streets, right? And again, I know I'm preaching the choir here, but we're really seeing it being ramped up, especially recently. Faculty are being suspended or investigated or fired. Public employees are silenced. Peaceful protesters are being targeted. And these are the very spaces that should foster debate and dialogue, and they're being reshaped by fear and control. So let me be absolutely clear. This is not a partisan issue, right? This is about defending the Constitution. It's about protecting our First Amendment rights, standing up for the principle that democracy cannot thrive without dissent, discussion, and open discourse. So tonight's conversation, it's not just about us listening, it's about us really thinking about what can we do together to push back. And so we're really thankful that you're here. I'm especially excited for you to hear from our incredible panelists. They are not just voices in this movement, but they're the future of this movement. We were very thoughtful about who we picked to be on this panel. These are Gen Z leaders, young organizers, advocates, change makers, who are already doing a lot of this hard work of defending free speech, building coalitions, showing us what leadership looks like. And these are the kinds of leaders the Democratic Party in this country need right now. And we also have Miriam from Hope and Action Indivisible, who will be introducing these panelists in a moment. But I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge something that we're all seeing now. Right. So especially online, and if you're on social media, I have a daughter who's in college and a 25-year-old son, and I'm just seeing it all over their social media, right? It's a flood of misogynistic, racist, and deeply harmful rhetoric coming from the so-called manosphere. And I just want to point it out. These are far-right influencers. Again, I know I'm preaching the choir, but these voices are loud, aggressive, and they're gaining traction. They have been gaining traction. Some may even say that they are the reason that we're in this situation right now with the government that we have, that these young men on the far right. So tonight, though, what's exciting is we have a powerful counterpoint. We have these panelists, Nicholas, Adam, and Dariel, who are not only leading with courage and clarity, but they're showing us what it truly means to be men on the right side of these issues. They're fighting for human rights, equity, truth, and they're doing it with compassion, conviction, and intelligence. And this is, at a time when toxic masculinity has been and is being marketed as strength, these young men are redefining what strength looks like. So excited that they can come bring their leadership to us. And this is what we need on the left. In our communities, we have to build up these folks and across our country. So their voices are critical in pushing back against the hate, the division, and the authoritarianism that's seeping into our culture. And tonight we get to hear from them directly. We are so lucky. So we're also going to be very honored in a little bit, maybe a half an hour, I think she's coming on. We're going to have a special guest who has been personally affected by this suppression of free speech right here in our community in South Florida. And you're going to hear calls to action tonight. So I'm going to be quiet in just a second. I'm talking too much. But I do hope that you reflect on the question of what can you do to defend free speech, right? Again, some housekeeping here. We're going to be putting the links for the calls to action in the chat. You can copy and paste them from there. We'll also send a follow-up email with all of the links in there, so you don't have to worry about jotting them all down at the moment. As long as you were registered on the Mobilize, you'll get that tomorrow or the next day at the latest. Also, if while the panelists are speaking, you have questions, please write those in the chat, in the Zoom chat. Juliana can do some tech on the back end if you're not sure, like where to write the chat or anything like that. So just let her know. But again, we're gonna have time for Q&A at the end. We have an amazing Hope and Action Indivisible back end team here who is just awesome, and they're going to be compiling those questions, and we'll be asking those at the end. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miriam, and she's going to introduce our panelists tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. So tonight we are really joined by four excellent individuals. I would dare say they are the South Florida candidates for profiling courage. Each one of these individuals, if they're not an activist in their universities, they're an activist in their community, or an activist in South Florida. Each one of them understand the important moment that we're in right now. And tonight, I want to let you know that we will be joined by Dr. Karen Leader, professor at FAU, who is in the middle of this maelstrom as well. So we will hear from everybody. As Jennifer said, you all, I will ask you to mute yourself. I want to make sure that we hear each one of our speakers when they are giving their talk. Put your questions in the chat. Be respectful of each other. This is a moment to learn and to understand what next steps you can take. To give you some food for thought as we start tonight's conversation, Frederick Douglass actually said, "No right was deemed by the fathers of government more sacred than the right of speech." So with that in mind, I would like to introduce to you our first speaker, Nicholas Ostheimer, who is a student organizer and president of the FAU College Democrats. He's been at the forefront of campus movements defending free speech and academic freedom, including the recent protests against the ICE 287G agreement and the suspension of faculty members. Nicholas has helped lead coalition efforts across South Florida University and has spoken publicly about the importance of protecting dissent in higher education. Please join me in welcoming Nicholas. Nicholas.
Thank you, Miriam, for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it tremendously. I'm going to get our presentation pulled up real quick. Everyone, please give me a thumbs up if you can see this fine. Okay, wonderful. So, hi, my name is Nicholas. I'm the president of the FAU College Democrats. I am 18 years old and I study political science, if you couldn't guess. A lot of the time, people ask me, what are the kids up to? Because in these circles, one way or another, it's pretty unusual to see younger folks who are protesting and organizing and getting the word out to fight fascism in America. And this is a really valid question because most of us aren't doing that much. However, everyone has a breaking point. And yes, the kids are all right. You're seeing here a picture from September 5th when we hosted our protest on campus against FAU Police Department's 287G agreement with ICE, which basically allows the police to deputize their agents as fully fledged ICE agents. So I want to give you another window into our organizing. All the way back in February, we led this protest against our new university president, Adam Hasner, who is a former right-wing Republican, the Speaker of the House and the Florida State Legislature. He is a private prison group executive. He is the vice president of the GEO group for public affairs, which basically means he's their chief lobbyist. He gets them their contracts with the state and with the federal government for detention. You can see some pictures here. We really got students involved in, polling, making it very, very clear that people don't think ICE belong on campus. And we had some funny signs. So we hope that this is the type of organizing that can make a dent on campus because if we're not the ones who are sticking up for free speech, for democracy, for due process at a university, then no one else is. And I think students are finally coming around to realizing that. Here is a brief clip. Please let me know if the audio comes across fine. Shoot me a thumbs down if it's not. No one should be punished for doing something like that.
I also spoke with Nicholas Ostheimer, president of the FAU College Democrats. The group calls the move by the school, quote, unjust and un-American.
To see this retaliation by right-wing institutions and university leadership, it's totally the wrong response. We should be coming together and saying, now is the time to have the hard conversations, just like we're supposed to on a college campus, instead of coming out and punishing professors for what they're saying online. I've never taken a class with Dr. Leader. She teaches art history. I'm a political science major, but she is the faculty sponsor of the FAU College Democrats. And even though she's going through a hard time right now, I couldn't be prouder to have a rebel and a fighter as our club sponsor. And I'm sure you guys appreciate that as well. So, what can you guys do to fight for free speech? I have a problem with many of the political events where the left comes together and talks about the state of our country. I don't scroll social media nearly as much as I used to. My family no longer has a TV in our house. We don't buy cable because I know the situation is bad. Everyone knows the situation is bad. The tricky part is finding something to do about it. I first saw January 6th unfold live on television when I was 15 years old, and I was looking for months and months and then years for a way to make myself useful. And it wasn't until my first year on campus that I got a job in political organizing. The catharsis from doing something about this assault on democracy, on free speech, on due process, it brings so much closure to my own life because I know that as a citizen of this country, I can do something about it. So, first of all, I want to direct all of you towards these letter writing campaigns. I want to make this very, very clear. These are not just petitions. Petition signatures are a number on a web page that go up and up and up, and you'd be lucky if one of the decision makers who you're asking to do something about it are even going to see that petition in the first place. These letter writing campaigns are designed to transmit your thoughts directly to the decision makers. If they're not reading it themselves, they have a secretary who's keeping a tally of the number of communications they're receiving, and they are going to change their PR policy and hopefully even their real policy based on what the public thinks. This is exactly part of the campaign that got Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, for example. So, first of all, Dr. Leader, I want to give a big shout out to the Florida Valkyries group for putting together a lot of these calls to action for letter writing. This is a link that we'll send to you after the event is over to make sure that you have the chance to speak out in her favor. So she has been suspended pending investigation. We don't know if she's going to be fired. She's tenured. She has a collective bargaining agreement. She is very, very well protected. But she is also easily the most outspoken professor on campus. So when we protested on September 5th, she, along with me and Dariel, as a matter of fact, was one of the 4 speakers that addressed the crowd in opposition to our new right-wing president and his connections to a private prison company that capitalizes directly off of the university's new relationship with ICE. So that is certainly suspicious. We know that she doesn't deserve to be fired. The outpouring of support from the student community has just been incredible. You can see there that already 150 letters have been sent. The university is certainly taking your letters into consideration, even as the online right-wing mob is dying down on Twitter. The actual people who are affected by Dr. Leader, who are her students, who are the taxpayers in the state who are paying for the public education she provides, these letters demonstrate that they care. Moving on, I want to recognize Matt Theobald. I know that he is a Martin County teacher. I believe he's the president of the Martin County Teachers Association. He's been teaching for 17 years. He is being suspended. He could easily be terminated for anti-Charlie Kirk comments made on his mother's private Facebook page. He has no disciplinary record. He has a personal commitment to keeping personal views out of the classroom. He is a pillar of the teaching community as an active member of his union. He's been fired on a whim. by a school board that is out for blood. The situation is pretty bad up in Martin County. But again, the right-wing mob dies down. We're here with a letter writing campaign to make sure that people like you can express your thoughts and tell the school board that you want Matt Theobald to stick around. So those are just two letter writing campaigns. The the one depressing thing about the response to all of these firings is there really isn't that much of an organized opposition. I looked long and hard for other letter writing campaigns, for example, and I couldn't find much. So whether it's a letter writing campaign, whether it's a mutual aid fund, whatever it is, if there is an affected teacher, professor, or public servant in your area who is asking for our help, please, please, please let me know. Follow up with me after the meeting. We will share it in the follow-up email and make sure that everyone who is attending this meeting gets the information, and we can add that on to Dr. Leader's and Matt Theobald's call for action. I'm going to just drop my email in the chat real quick. Feel free to get in touch. I want to direct all of you towards these upcoming protests. We had one of the single biggest days of protests in American history back in June with the No Kings demonstrations hosted by Indivisible. We have 8 in the Tri-County area coming up on October 18th. So this is No Kings. If you want to find one in your area, wherever you are in Florida, you can find the protest nearest to you on nokings.org/#map. When I share the slideshow, you'll also be able to click on this, but this URL will take you there. Let's go north to south. So first one is in Palm Beach Gardens, Saturday, October 18th. It's on PGA Boulevard and Campus Drive. No Kings 2.0 in Palm Beach County. The address is private, but I know it's just a little bit north of Town Center, if I'm not mistaken. Indivisible, Boca Raton. This is the one closest to Florida Atlantic University. We're going to make sure that we are carpooling FAU students here, and I'm very happy to be speaking. I think there may even be another FAU student who is speaking at this protest. So we like to get young folks involved because at the very least, this is the closest thing to us. No Kings in Coral Springs. This is further in west. No Kings in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Another one in Fort Lauderdale. This one is, I think, pretty close to the historic Bonnet House. One in Hollywood, and finally, one in No Kings, Miami, and this is on Biscayne Boulevard. If you're not doing anything on October 18th, you absolutely need to be going to a No Kings protest. We're going to make this even bigger than it was in June. If you are doing something, maybe look if you can reschedule it, because this is going to be pretty big. One final action item I would like to present y'all with: call your legislators. The most concerning thing is that our leadership, and many of them are Democrats for what it's worth, there are very, very few of them speaking out against this cancel campaign that the online right is waging against teachers, professors, and public servants. None of them are sticking up for the people who are working these public jobs, who are sacrificing their time and energy to do a public service and are now getting shortchanged for it just because they're using their free speech. So you can make calls on this link, also put together by the Florida Valkyries. You just input your real phone number and zip code. After that, you will get a phone call from an automated system that connects you with your state house senator or state house representative. In your message, include your support for the freedom of expression. If there is a specific teacher or professor or public servant in your area who has been affected, it would be great to reference them by name. Share with them your zip code and tell them what you think. I think this is actually a really cathartic opportunity because I'm sure y'all can put together your thoughts forcefully. This is your opportunity to do it with somebody who might not already agree with you. So that is all I have to share. I know we've got a lot on the agenda today, but I want to wrap this up by saying, if you are taking out the time of your day to show up to these meetings, to stay in the loop about politics, I know for a fact that you are very, very worried about everything you're seeing in the news. Do something about it, because there are a lot of options.
Nicholas, thank you very much. Very good words, very good ideas, very good suggestions. I'm noticing some comments in the chat. Please submit your questions. I appreciate it. I'd like to introduce to you now next Adam Roberti. Adam is the executive director of the Cortada Foundation, a nonprofit using socially engaged art to inspire collective action on climate change and biodiversity loss. He collaborates with the Florida Hall of Fame artist Javier Cortada to implement large-scale eco-art initiatives, such as the Underwater and Reclamation Project. He also leads partnerships with schools, parks, businesses, and government to engage the vulnerable community in building resilience and advocating for equitable policies. As a University of Miami double alumnus, Adam has been recognized as a 30 under 30 honoree, an Aspen Institute Fellow, and a speaker at the National Academy of Science. And believe it or not, with all that going on, he also serves on the City of Hollywood Sustainability Advisory Committee and is on the board of the Broward Young Democrats. Please welcome me in joining Adam. Adam, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Beautiful introduction. And Nicholas, awesome job. Thank you for kicking us off like that. What I love is that we're going to go in very different directions, right? Everybody on this call is going to be hearing a large diversity of ideas here. And so whereas Nicholas was able to give very concrete, right now, we need to be doing these letter writing campaigns. We need to be making these phone calls. We need to be showing up at these protests. I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction, still incredibly actionable, but in a way that gives you all on this call your ability to use your own creativity to see what resonates with you and what would make you the most passionate and what would make you the most excited. Because at the end of the day, there is no panacea, there is no silver bullet that is going to solve our problems. As we know, we're in a very, very difficult place. As you heard from my bio, I do a lot of work with the Broward Young Democrats, but also with an artist. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about art. But before I do that, I want to, I think, just kind of lay the foundation that if we are going to protect free speech, we need to amplify our voices and build power. How are we going to do that? How are we really actively growing our coalition, growing our movement so that we are reaching huge numbers of people? Right now, we're not doing it well enough. We need to wake our communities up because of democracy is collapsing around us. Given that we are sleepwalking toward catastrophe, it is up to everybody on this call to do something about it, to meet this moment. So how do we meet this moment? In my perspective, the way that I see things, we have two spaces in which we can do that. We have the physical world and we have the digital world. So how can we amplify our voices and build power in these two spaces? I want to start with the physical world because a lot of people talk about social media and making videos and stuff. I think that there's a lot of untapped resources that we have at our disposal that we don't use when it comes to engaging folks in real life, not on Zoom calls, not on WhatsApp groups. And so what I want to talk a little bit about in my short time here is how are we creatively engaging folks? We live in an attention economy. We have billions of screens all over the world, right? We have lots of distractions all over the place. So how do we get people's attention? And the case that I want to make here, there are many ways of doing this. And you have, marketers galore that are trying to get our attention and tech companies all over the place. We need to take back that power and that ability. And so we need to use interactive art. And what I mean by that is art in its fullest capacity. I don't mean you painting. I am a horrible painter. You do not want to see my drawings, but I am an artist. And so I want to show you a quick example of what I mean by that. In my bio, you heard a couple of projects that we do that pertains to climate. But I want you to understand how this can translate, and this idea, this concept, this methodology, this framework can translate to the campaigns that we are running as it relates to free speech and democracy. If you're driving down the street, you see a number 7. What is that doing there? That's strange. That wasn't there before. Odd. Yard sign in front of your neighbor's house. Why is there an 8? That's not a political sign. That's not a vote for someone sign. It's an 8, and there's a QR code on there, but this is odd. I'm at the park and I'm seeing these sculptures. What do these numbers mean? These are elevation markers. And so what we have been doing as part of the Cortada Foundation's mission is scaling up these permanent and temporary art pieces that are ambiguous and odd, and they make you question what it is. It grabs your attention such that you dive in, you scan the QR code that's embedded on the mural, that's embedded in the sculpture, in the yard sign, and you learn about how vulnerable we are in South Florida to sea level rise, how low we are, how we are on top of limestone rock. You can literally type your address into the website and it tells you your elevation. So now this issue, which at one point seemed abstract, feels personal. You have buses being wrapped, you have pop-up installations on beaches, you have permanent murals, like this is a ceramic mural in Fort Lauderdale outside of the commission chambers in Broward County Government Center. There are so many ways that art can be used to reach people and engage them in our movement that I just don't see organizations or institutions or people really doing. We go to all of these different public schools. We've done 16 public schools in Broward County, middle and high schools, creating these huge murals and then engaging, at this point, thousands of students in conversations about the climate crisis at a time when we're not supposed to talk about climate change in public schools. But we can do that because we infiltrate through art. So I'm wanting to just quickly show you guys that because with that kind of context, I think that you can see how this can be harnessed in the setting that we are currently in, right? So we're talking about using QR codes to bring people into resources, petitions, events, but it's strange and it's all over the place. So there's repetition, it's interactive. And you, in this process, are partnering with lots of different stakeholders and local businesses and political parties, if you want to, neighbors. It's how can we often talk about casting a wide net or having a big tent. This art allows that kind of elasticity and allows you to be able to do that. So I wanted to give you guys some ideas for you to use in the sense that as you're thinking through what's possible, yes, you can take yard signs, you could do murals. Flags are a really important thing that I don't think people use, and it's very easy to print these things. And if you have a campaign where you have these flags in your yard, inside your house, what I'm saying might sound weird, and I understand it is to many people, but I'm just going to give you just little nuggets that you can incorporate if you so choose. So, for example, we saw with the Tesla protests projections on different buildings. Projections are something that are temporary but can be powerful. Billboard takeovers, right? So you have a service like Blind Spot. If you've never heard of that company, you can rent billboards for pretty cheap for short amounts of time and get a message out when you wouldn't expect. Wheat pasting, chalk drawings, flash mobs, stickers, shirts, buttons. These are all things that I think can be used in a way that they're not really being used now. So then to take us back, and I know I don't have too much time, I want to think about then, okay, so we're amplifying our voices with the arts. How are we then building that power when we get people together? Protests obviously have a role to play. I want to also make the argument, I think Indivisible was encouraging freedom parties. So thinking about holding dinners, thinking about documentary screenings, thinking about music sharing parties where you're trying to like listen to an album, for example, it doesn't have to be a whole party. But depending on if you're 20 years old or if you're 70 years old, it might be a get together, a meetup. There's different ways that you're going to spin it so that it fits your network and your audience. So I want to jump quickly over to the digital world. I think a lot of people are familiar with how we can use social media. I just wanted to highlight a couple of tools that I don't think a lot of people know about. One is a teleprompter app. And so if you go into the App Store, you can type in teleprompter, and there are free apps where you can have a script and you put it in your teleprompter app, and then you can just record a video while it scrolls your text and you can read it. There's a lot of people who are fearful of public speaking. People are self-conscious. You don't want to mess something up. You don't think you're going to sound good. And a teleprompter app, I feel like, makes it much, much easier to have a higher production quality, production value of the content that you produce. And just like that, I think it would be great to see more people create series of works, not just like one-off videos or posts here and there, but if you're passionate about something, there are lots of different angles and ways that you can approach that thing. And so what if you made 30-second, 1 minute long videos or posts about these as a way of getting that message out? Repetition is really important. Same with invitations to folks. When we use these platforms, we need to be doing things more than once because that's how you get through to people. On Instagram, you have the ability to do collab posts, so making sure that we collaborate with as many people as possible. Live streaming, you can live stream, dialogue, live stream a protest. So there are lots of tools that we have at our disposal, and what I'm hoping to do here is just bring some of those to the forefront in case we haven't thought about all of these before, how we can incorporate them better into our movement. And then I guess I'll end with, to walk the walk, using the digital world to connect folks in this physical world. I want to invite everyone to an exciting event that the Broward Young Democrats have this Saturday afternoon. It's our community conversation. I'll be there. A lot of like-minded younger folks will be there. Would love for you guys to come, and I'll make sure to drop the link in here. It's in Lauderhill. I hope that this was helpful. And again, thank you everybody for coming and being a part of this.
It's wonderful. You gave us all kinds of ideas and ways that we can push forward that freedom of speech is not only speaking it, but it's the vision, the innovation in art. So thank you very much for those great ideas. Remember, put your comments, your thoughts, your questions into the chat. That will be very helpful for us at the end of the hour. Next, I would love to introduce to you Dariel Gomez. Dariel is ACLU, of Florida's field organizer based in Miami-Dade. He started with the ACLU as a high school student volunteer from Broward for the Immigrant Justice Campaign in 2021. Since then, he's organized on voting rights, immigrant rights in Miami-Dade. He's a senior at FIU, majoring in psychology, and he comes from a proud Dominicano American immigrant family. Please welcome Dariel. Dariel.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for the introduction. Thank you all for having me in this space. It's great to be able to take this hour to speak with you all about this very important issue that we're seeing a lot in Florida. I also just want to give another applause to Adam and to Nick for the work that you guys are doing. Really, really impressive stuff. I'm not sure if I can follow that up very well. But I'm here basically to represent the American Civil Liberties Union of Florida. For those of you that might not be familiar with us, we are a nonprofit organization, nonpartisan, and our mission really is to uphold the Constitution and protect everyone's civil and constitutional rights, regardless of their identity, their beliefs, or their background, or in the current climate, their immigration status. So in Florida, we organize around a number of issues, primarily reproductive freedom, immigrant rights, voting rights, and of course, free speech. In particular, I'm our lead organizer on our immigrant rights work, so I recognize a lot of you from the work that we've done in that space. Free speech is not as much my expertise, so I'm going to be relaying a lot of information from my colleagues that couldn't be here tonight. But I would like to start out by just laying the foundation of why it is so important for us to protect the First Amendment. Our commitment as the ACLU of Florida to defending freedom of speech and the First Amendment stems from a very simple yet very crucial belief that is under threat right now, and that is that free speech is a right that protects everyone, even when others don't agree with the message. If the government can suppress our voices today, they can suppress anyone's voices tomorrow. You might not agree with everything that you might be seeing online. You might not be agreeing with some of the speech that you might be hearing on your university campuses, at your workplace, in your communities, right? But the First Amendment, even when you aren't the one that's engaged in free speech, it's still protecting you too. The second that we can nitpick who under the First Amendment's category of protected speech is allowed to say their political beliefs, say their opinions, or give their opinions on current pressing political issues, that's the moment that our democracy is under threat. And that's what we're seeing in our country and in our state of Florida. The first example that I want to give on this issue that we as the ACLU were and continue to be very engaged in is really at the intersection of immigrant justice and free speech. So again, being the immigrant rights organizer, this is a little bit of what I'm more familiar with, but I do want to take this opportunity to illustrate that there is a huge intersection between the two issues. And that is the case of Mahmoud Khalil. Many of you may have heard of his name. There were a lot of news headlines earlier in the year around April when his case was blowing up in the news. So Mahmoud Khalil is a legal permanent resident. That means he has a green card. He is legally protected to be in the United States, and he's protected under the First Amendment as well. He is a university graduate. Well, now he's a graduate. He graduated from Columbia University in New York City, and he was engaged in a lot of campus activism. So his case shows us how we have seen attacks on freedom of speech that are intertwined with the government's anti-immigrant and mass deportation agenda. Because attacks on free speech have also been used as tools to detain and deport individuals who the government deems to be a nuisance, like Khalil, who became a household name after he was detained by ICE for peacefully protesting at Columbia University. Again, even though he was a legal permanent resident, he had legal protections in the United States. So, in response to the government's violation of the First Amendment and their detainment of Khalil after participating in a campus protest, ACLU National filed a lawsuit on behalf of Khalil in defense of his First Amendment rights. And I'm going to quote ACLU National in this. To be clear, the First Amendment does not allow the government to retaliate against anyone for their speech, ripping someone from their home, stripping them of their immigration status, and detaining them solely based on political viewpoint is a clear attempt by President Trump to silence dissent. And that's patently unconstitutional. Our political beliefs must never be the basis for deportation or family separation. After 104 days in unlawful detention, on June 20th, Khalil was freed and was able to return to his wife and his newborn child. We celebrated across the country here at the ACLU when we heard that update. And his case is still ongoing in federal court. And to quote Staff Attorney Noor Zafar from ACLU, today's ruling underscores a vital First Amendment principle, which is that the government cannot abuse immigration law to punish speech it disfavors. So I'm going to send 2 links in the Zoom chat where you all can read a little bit more about Khalil and the updates on his case, including the most recent update, which I'm not going to get into because of time. So we're seeing, right, that the government tried to use immigration law and immigration enforcement. They tried to weaponize ICE in particular, a government agency, to suppress the free speech of somebody who they viewed to be a nuisance. Of course, the Constitution doesn't allow for that because the First Amendment exists. And so we were able to get Khalil out of ICE detention, and we're continuing to fight his case. However, as we know, Florida is often the testing ground for the federal government's attacks on our rights and democracy. And we are now seeing these attacks on freedom of speech intensify within our state. So Dr. Leader, who is amazing, and I've had the pleasure to work with her specifically on fighting the 287G at FAU. She has been a victim of this state repression, but she's not the only one. Of course, we know a number of teachers throughout the state that have been attacked for their comments on whether it be Charlie Kirk's death or expressing other political beliefs they have faced unlawful repercussion. Most recently, the ACLU of Florida, and most recently as in last Friday, filed a lawsuit against the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for firing a state employee. Her name was Brittany Brown, or is Brittany Brown, she's still alive, who was fired after making a temporary social media post on Instagram about the tragedy of school shootings that referenced the death of Charlie Kirk on her private account. So I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about who Brittany Brown is. She is a skilled biologist who worked for the FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, for over 7 years. And during her tenure, she earned consecutive performance-based raises by her superiors. She had been awarded by her peers for being a supportive and dependable colleague, right? This is a valuable government employee who is contributing to conservation efforts within Florida. While she was on vacation, she reposted a post from a parody account on her Instagram story, and the post did not condone Charlie Kirk's killing, nor did it call for further violence, and rather it conveyed a satirical indifference. Satire is a viewpoint that is fully covered by the First Amendment, so this was protected speech. Yet her temporary 24-hour post, it was an Instagram stories post, was screenshotted from her account, which is private on Instagram, and was later uploaded to X, formerly known as Twitter, by an account called Libs of TikTok. This is a very infamous alt-right account that a lot of us in my generation are very familiar with, which shared a screenshot of Brown's post next to a screenshot of her LinkedIn profile. So this is called doxing, right? When you expose somebody's personal identity through social media. And the post called for her immediate termination at the state agency. Within 24 hours, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission wrongfully complied with the post that this alt-right social media account made and terminated Brown, which violated her First Amendment rights. So what we're seeing is the political weaponization of a government agency like the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission that should have nothing to do with their employees' personal and private comments on political updates, and yet they're complying with right-wing groups' demands online. So our lawsuit argues that the First Amendment prohibits government officials from retaliating against employees for speech based on the ideas or opinions that it conveys, and yet government actors at all levels have been calling for Americans to lose their jobs and livelihood simply because they exercise their right to freely express political views that are controversial. This is a pattern. So again, we filed this lawsuit. We are representing Brittany in court, and I want to quote something that our staff attorney, Carrie McNamara, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, said that I felt was very very impactful. And she said that our right to free speech and the ability to criticize political leaders in public is fundamental to democracy and a free society. We have to stand up to this ideological purge being forced on us by the state of Florida and by federal actors around the country. I, as in Carrie, am so proud to represent Brittany and to work with everyone at the ACLU of Florida on the front lines of the battle for the future of our country. So again, we're going to continue representing Brittany and by extension, all federal employees in Florida that have been unlawfully targeted by the government for their private political views, which is protected under the First Amendment. So I sent the press release on Brittany and the lawsuit there. And I don't know that there's going to be time to discuss this, so I'm going to just briefly mention another lawsuit that we filed earlier this year is actually at the intersection of LGBTQ rights and free speech, because one of the ways that the state of Florida has targeted the LGBTQ community the most is actually through censorship. So academic censorship, banning books that touch on LGBTQ topics in our public schools, and also attacking the right that drag performers have to perform in public. And so one of these examples is actually the city of Naples, which denied Naples Pride, the nonprofit organization that hosts Naples Pride Fest annually, from holding its Pride Fest in a public park. So they denied the special events permit for them to hold Pride Fest in a public park this year. That was April of 2025. So they were going to host it in June of 2025, but because the lawsuit is still pending, they were actually forced to hold it indoors. And so this is essentially extremely unlawful and unconstitutional because, and I'll say that many of you may have heard that there was an anti-drug law in Florida. That law is actually subject to a preliminary injunction by federal court as of 2023. So that law is not in effect in Florida, meaning that it is illegal for any government in Florida to ban drag performers in public. And so we sued the city of Naples after they denied Naples Pride the special events permit under that preliminary injunction, that it is illegal for them just because they may have one feeling or another towards the art of drag, towards the LGBT community, for them to impose those beliefs and withhold special permits from a nonprofit organization. Again, this is the intersection between LGBTQ rights and free speech in Florida, which we're seeing a lot of. So I know I'm getting close to the 10 minutes. I'm going to send the press release for the Naples Pride lawsuit where you guys can read more. Again, happy to answer any questions on it you all might have later. But I want to go ahead and share a couple of calls to action before I wrap up. So I know that a lot of you guys are going to be attending the No Kings protest on October 18th. If you go to the one in Hollywood, you'll see me there. But what I want to invite you all to do is to actually take an additional step. If you are going to be at the protest already, but you want to have more of a volunteer role, something that the ACLU of Florida, that you guys might be seeing us at a number of protests across the state doing, is what's called legal observing. So legal observing during a protest means that you are suspending your First Amendment rights to protest in order to serve as a neutral witness and document any interactions that may happen between protesters and counter protesters, that might happen between police and protesters. Many instances that we've seen where police have tried to silence protesters, again, treading on their First Amendment rights. And so as a legal observer, you're suspending your rights because you're forfeiting your right to engage in the protest, but you're serving as a neutral witness to protect the First Amendment rights of others. So if you're already going to be at these protests and already going to be at these actions, and you want it's very easy thing that you can do to help contribute to protecting free speech. One thing that we encourage you to do is sign up with us, get trained to be a legal observer. If you're going to be at No Kings anyway, you can join the ACLU of Florida in providing legal observing and protecting the protesters' right to free speech. So I'm going to send the link for our upcoming trainings in the Zoom chat. And then lastly, I'm going to drop two more links. One is for our free speech team, where we offer monthly updates to all of our free speech work across the LGBTQ space, across the academic space, in Florida, and our banned book club. So both of these are hosted by our free speech organizer, Madeline. She's wonderful. She's incredible. Some of you might know her if you've attended some of these events. So yeah, she provides the updates during the free speech team meeting. And then the banned book club is something that we've come up with as a way to do some more joyful resistance against the state of Florida's censorship of a lot of this educational material. So every month we pick a book that has been banned in Florida public schools, and you can sign up to read that book every month and reflect on why it's been censored. So I know I'm at time. Thank you all for giving me the space. I appreciate it, and I'll pass it back to Jennifer. Or Miriam.
Hi, Dariel, I love you. You gave us great ideas, great thoughts. I have to be honest, Animal Farm was running through my head as I was listening to you talk. For those of you of a certain generation, you'll know that book, Animal Farm. All right. So I am very happy and I am honored to present Dr. Karen Leader. She is an associate professor of art history at Florida Atlantic University. She specializes in modern and contemporary art, intersectional feminist approaches, and an advocacy for the humanities in higher education. On September 13th, as we all know, she was placed on administrative leave after a former DeSantis staffer created a viral post of tweets that Dr. Leader shared offering truthful information about Charlie Kirk's bigotry. Since then, she's been doxxed and she's received death threats. But I'm really happy for tonight, everybody to hear from Dr. Leader. Professor, please.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you, Jennifer, and the organizers. I'm honored to be here with the rest of you. I also have to tell you that I'm here with the French film crew.
Hi.
Who are going to be doing a segment on this situation in South Florida and sort of the state of things in the United States in general. And so I've been with them for several hours now. I double booked myself. So right inside there is our Solidarity Cinema series, which I'm one of the co-organizers of. So I snuck in there, made a surprise appearance there, didn't tell them that I was coming. I wasn't put on the program for this in a named way, also because of the death threats that Miriam mentioned. The worst thing that could happen is if the situation I'm experiencing put other people at risk. So that's why I wasn't named to be here, but I'm glad to see there's so many people on. Can I share my screen? Yes, okay. So.
If not, I will make sure you can, Dr. Leader. There you go. Perfect.
Okay, so you all heard what happened to me, but I want to start by being clear that this is not about me or even us here at FAU that this happened to. It is about political violence and how political violence is used to stifle free speech and how that is happening all over the country. And it is a way to shut us all up for political ends. And so, of course, I didn't hear the other three papers except the very end of Dariel's. So if I'm repeating anything, I know that doxing has already been mentioned. Probably some other aspects of what happened have been mentioned, but from my perspective, my focus is on the violence and not on the speech. So political violence is the first part of my title, and then comes free speech. Free speech was won as the result of political violence. And whenever it is re-won or reattained, it is usually recaptured as the result of political violence. But that, of course, works the other way around, too. Political violence stifles free speech, smothers it. And that's what's happening right now. So what happened with us and what happened all over the state and what happened all over the country is not about what we posted. It's not even about Charlie Kirk. It's not even about acceptable speech. It was a coordinated effort to single out people in order to direct harassment their way, to shut them up. And if they weren't shut up, then to inflict either economic violence through losing their job or physical violence through threats of the sort that I received. The people who doxed me were state actors, not random people on Twitter, formerly known as X, forever known as Twitter. They were state actors. The person who first went and found the screenshots of four of my tweets, retweets of other people's content, was a former staffer for Ron DeSantis. So that is a form of political violence, whether you want to call it violence or not. It wasn't some random person who liked Charlie Kirk and wanted to punish me. It was a coordinated state effort to target people. What doxing intends to accomplish is to provoke fear in order to shut people up. Sometimes the force and scale of doxing campaigns like this one and the speed with which they unfold because of the algorithms have moved into the point where they can't be stopped. They can't be turned around. The algorithm picks up the work and spreads it around, and the combination of bots and trolls swoop in to take over the algorithm. And then somewhere along the way, the mainstream media picks it up and decides that this is a trending story, and they generally never get it right. Widespread doxing as a political tool to punish universities and academics is not a new phenomenon. but right now it's particularly virulent. And I'm quoting Keith Whittington, who's a professor at Yale Law School and an expert on free speech. He says, quote, "The size of the activity, the pressure campaign, and the short period of time is highly unusual in this case. Universities feel like they're under intense pressure to mollify right-wing activists and try not to draw negative attention from the Trump administration." Ultimately, it's not about what the employees said, Whittington continued. It's about political outcomes, unquote. This is primarily about exercising political power and trying to silence and suppress people who disagree with you politically, he said. It doesn't matter that the offense is trivial. What matters is you're identifying people that you politically disagree with, and you have a moment in which you can exercise power over those people. And there are a lot of people willing to take advantage of those opportunities. Now, in fact, doxing can be an act of violence. It is not always, but it is intended to strike fear in those who are doxed. And at that point, it becomes political violence. And there's a name for it. And the name is stochastic terrorism. And you can read the definition here: the public demonization of a person or group resulting in the incitement of a violent act, which is statistically probable, but whose specifics cannot be predicted. And a quote of an example: "The lone wolf attack was apparently influenced by the rhetoric of stochastic terrorism." That apparently means that stochastic terrorism resulting in violent acts is very hard to prosecute because it's usually after the fact and can't be predictable in time and place. And so I didn't announce my presence here because I don't know if there's a lone wolf who is still hanging on to this anger about what I retweeted about Charlie Kirk. So when speech becomes political violence, the people being targeted become silent. And so silence is the void within which new narratives can enter in. And the narrative we're seeing right now is the one that Charlie Kirk was an angel and just wanted civil discourse. Right? But it escalates. And so yesterday, Donald Trump warned that flag burning, which is protected speech, that flag burning would be banned, that he was going to eliminate free speech because flag burning, quote, agitates and irritates crowds, unquote. That's Donald Trump. So the idea that something agitates a crowd then becomes the terrorist act, the thing to be stifled. So the anatomy of stochastic terrorism: rile a crowd. The algorithms amplify it and escalate it. The targets are silenced, shut up, quiet themselves or self-censor themselves to lower the temperature. Mission accomplished. But someone stews, someone burns, someone has written down your home address, your phone number, your email address. And after everyone else has moved on to the next trend, to the next thing, that's where school shootings come from. That's where mass shootings come from. It resembles, in many ways, domestic violence. Domestic violence heats up and cools down and heats up and cools down, but ultimately the victim gets blamed. Why do you keep making me hit you? Why do you keep saying that? You know I don't like it. In the same way, it is me that is being targeted as having brought violence to this campus, resulting in increased police presence, an observation tower, 24/7 police protection for the president of the university. The anatomy of the coverage. Speech is the story. What did they say? Is what they said legal? Is what they said professional? What did they say? What exact words did they say or tweet or Facebook or comment? What did they say? The coverage is not who's doing the violence, who doxed them, who threatened them, who went and found their home address. Where were those people radicalized is the question. Every time it's where were those people radicalized? But the press doesn't ask. The press drills down to, well, that could have been taken as a threat. Parsing respectability, which harkens back to respectability politics. I'll do what you say if you ask me nicely, if you do it our way. The press ignores the violence, blames the speakers, lather, rinse, repeat. So finally, what next? I'm going to drop a few links in the chat because what next is that it's up to us to change the narrative. How many times has this happened? How many more times does it have to happen before our elected officials, our press, our law enforcement recognize who is inflicting the violence and who are the victims? Because in my case, the students are the victims, and they have done nothing to deserve this. So, change the narrative. The reporting is there. The reporters that I have spoken to have done amazing reporting and have listened to me say, it's not about what I said. Nothing I said would have justified what has happened to me or this university or my students. Nothing that I said. It's not about that. It's about this strategy of political violence, doxing, stochastic terror. Put the emphasis on the doxers and take it off the speakers. Bring back the shaming of hypocrites who say that Charlie Kirk just wanted civil discourse. And yet in the name of Charlie Kirk, I'm getting called the C word every single day. Every single day. Put the focus on those who know that's going to happen. Not the random person taking my phone number and calling me the C word, but the people, the state actors who doxed me. The named people with little blue checks next to them who knew, because they know who comes into their mentions. They know what's going to happen. Focus on them. And finally, demand accountability for anyone who encourages harassment of people like teachers, professors, people in public positions. Hold accountable those who harass, who direct violence at us. Because until we do that, this strategy works. It works beautifully. It works every single damn time. And it can't continue. Thank you. I'm going to drop some links in the chat, and I look forward to taking questions if you have them.
Professor, thank you very much, not only for your words, but for your bravery. I know that I know I'm saying this for me, but I'm sure everybody in the room is right behind you. We're supporting you. Thank you. We have finished listening to all of our speakers. Jen, I will pass it over to you and we'll answer questions that have been collected by the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to, first of all, thank you, Dr. Leader, for your bravery. Thank you for just the explanation and the wise words. Super, super, super powerful. We have heard some really powerful messages tonight, learned so much, and hopefully gained some fresh perspectives. But now it's time to take it a step further, right? Education is essential, but action is what brings change. Awareness without engagement can only go so far. So we can't let this be where it ends, and we are going to do a Q&A at the moment. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Miriam very, very much for your moderation of the panel. Thank you so much, Miriam. We so appreciate it. We have had a few questions in the chat. I am going to take the liberty to ask a question to Dr. Leader that has come up before. And the question is, and maybe for our panelists as well, and how we're going to do this is, again, if you do have a question that you're just thinking of now, please put it in the chat. We will capture that, and then we'll go ahead and have the panelists answer. But the first question is really, how can we support and push back through a coordinated effort, right? So each of us are probably asking, what can we do to support you, Dr. Leader? What can we do to support the Martin County teacher? We do have, Nick gave some fabulous links to letter writing campaigns that we will do, as well as calling our legislators. But can we show up, right? Is there like a university board meeting that we can come to or something? So I just wanted to give you just maybe a minute just to kind of how can we, with all the groups and networks that we have, really be that organized, coordinated effort, that organized opposition that Nick spoke of in the beginning that says it's not there. So how can we create that?
Yeah, thank you. I did just put a few things in the chat. Save the chat, please, because I want to see what's been going on before I came in here.
We'll send that out. Yeah.
The very first thing, and I think all of us have posted it on our socials, is to call our president, to call our elected officials, to call the university first, or write to the university. And I don't have the infographic in front of me right now, but figure out how I can share it.
We did share it previously, so we'll share
it again
in the follow-up email.
Yeah. So, and in the follow-up email. So the thing is that the thing that they need to hear from you is not that this is about free speech. They know that. They know it's about free speech, and they know that they're wrong. And they know that they were wrong from the beginning. They're still wrong, and they will be wrong as long as they react this way to these organized campaigns that are intended to make them, bow down. So if you write to the president or to the president of the university or call, the message is, why are you doing this to the value of people who got their degree there? Why are you destroying the reputation? Why are you devaluing the diplomas? Why are you making it harder for this university to secure grant funding? Why are you ruining our international reputation? Those are the questions they need to be hearing, because that's what's happening. By doing this petty, stupid thing that makes us look awful, they are devaluing the investment of 50 years of FAU's stellar reputation. We just got upgraded to a Research 1 institution, Carnegie Classification of Research 1. That's a big deal. That opens up opportunities for enormous resources to make incredible progress in our research, in science and oceanography and cancer research, everything. Who's going to give us money when our institution is making a mockery of the basic foundations of public education. Public education is a miracle. It is a miracle of modern societies that we would educate young people so that they could be functioning adults in a democracy. That's a miracle. And I'm so proud to be part of it. And when you do this sort of thing, when you damage the very reputation that we've built over 50 years, you're hurting young people.
Yeah.
And so that's what they need to hear. You're hurting young people. And I'm going to say one more thing, because this is the crux of it for me. Adam Hasner, our new president, swore to us in our faculty forum when he was one of the finalists for the job, swore to us that his number one priority was student safety. And by his actions, and some of this has been written about in the local press, so I don't need to go into it to any detail, but he literally made me go viral than I needed to go by posting my administrative leave on Twitter. He made it worse. He put more attention on the university for something that could have just gone away. He made it worse, and he misrepresented what I did. So they need to hear that that is bad for the university, that donors aren't going to cough up money, alumni aren't going to join the alumni association. That's what they need to hear.
Thank you. I think framing that message helps us as, just people that are not involved but want to be, supporters of you and folks that have been affected, and we want to have this coordinated opposition effort. That messaging that really helps, right? Because again, we can say free speech all day long, but then it's like a both sides issue, right? And it's not a both sides issue, as we know. So thank you for that. And we will all of this follow-up email. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. So, but the other half of this is the other link that I put in there, which is what to say to your legislators.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the other link I put in there, is what to say to your legislators. And that's a different message. And warning, I'm going to drop an F-bomb.
That's okay.
Where the fuck are you? Have y'all heard from your legislators? Everyone in South Florida has a university in their district. Practically every elected official, state, Senate, House in Washington. Where are they?
Yeah.
Why aren't they speaking out? What is stopping them from saying, you are doing harm? We need to stop this. We need to change the trajectory. Where is Jared Moskowitz? Where is Lois Frankel? Where is Brian Mast? Where is all of them? Where are they? Because this is happening everywhere, and they are zip-lipped. As far as I know, I haven't heard a single word.
Well, we've been asking that question for about 11 months now. So anyway, wanted just to, again, thank you, Dr. Leader, and thank you, Nick. Thank you, Dariel and Adam. Before we get into a couple more Q&As, there are two other actions that I want to point out. One is Jay from Boca Indivisible has an action that we can do that is about pushing back and is about, again, Dr. Leader talks about economic violence, and there's ways that we can push back on institutions, on corporations, that there's something that is coming up that I wanted to, I don't want to get too much off the point, but I do want to just highlight that in terms of action. So Jay, if you want to just come on mute. Yeah.
Do you have me? All right. So I'm here to share a very brief but very important call to action. We are asking for your support in joining Wave 2 of Blackout the System. Now, Blackout the System is a national boycott movement calling on all Americans to stop their spending, no purchases from November 25th to December 2nd. Now, this includes Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which are two of the most profitable days for corporations like Amazon, like Walmart, Target, and many others who engage in things like union busting, suppression of wages, undermining social safety nets, and funneling millions of dollars to these politicians that are enabling this illegal crackdown on free expression by this administration. Wave one was in the middle of September, and Blackout the System reported $76 billion in corporate losses during that week. So we know it works. We know it's impactful. Now we just need you to help us spread that message. So go to social media, look for Blackout the System. Blackout is one word, or go to blackoutthesystem.com. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Boca Indivisible, for your support for this event and for all that you're doing. Really appreciate it. Okay, one more call to action, and then we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A. I'm going to share my screen. This just came through today, and I think there's someone on the call that has a counter protest to it, but I think it's very important, and I hope that it's anyway. I just feel like it's very pertinent. So there will be a rally at the school board meeting October 15th in Palm Beach for Freedom for Charlie. So we talked about these far right groups, and the reason why I'm putting this up is because, again, what do we do as the, opposition to this, so that it's not just this, and we saw this in Lauderdale by the Sea when they were renaming, or they were trying, well, they succeeded, but trying to rename the street Donald J. Trump, and all these people came and showed that they didn't want that. But all that to say, I feel like it's so important for public perception for there to be the opposition to these kind of rallies. So any of the panelists or anyone that's on the call that can talk to us about what we can do to do the counter messaging to this to this nonsense.
I want to point out that this isn't a rally just yay Charlie Kirk. It's a rally to get a teacher fired. That's the important part. That's why it's at the school board meeting.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, and it just came through literally before we got on here, but I feel like this is exactly what we're talking about in terms of this harmful messaging, number one, and number two, the political violence, right? So it's what Dr. Leader and all of our panelists have been talking about. And so I don't know if it's appropriate at the moment for for us to talk about what we can do about that in particular. To any of the panelists or anyone that's on the call that's I'm just going to look in the chat.
If you don't mind, I'd like to jump in. To the point that Dr. Leader said, this is a moment that kind of activity, we should be able to protest peacefully, respectfully, but let people know we do not agree with making Charlie Kirk a saint. The man was a bigot, and there should be a counter protest, because if we stay silent, it is taken as we accept it. And we cannot accept that kind of life.
Right. And to Christina's point, for this to be where some people are going to show up to try to get a teacher fired because of, because of a view that the teacher had, again, is exactly what we're talking about. And it's bullying and it's political violence. So Dr. Leader, and then we have a couple more questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, this is Edwin Ferguson. Now I know what it's about. That if anyone was tuned in, there was a wonderful event in Boynton on Monday night that had to do with a Charlie Kirk memorial or statue or whatever. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of people showed up from different organizations like this and had a pretty silent protest. And then they recorded the school board meeting, and the speaker was incredibly powerful. And so it was a counter protest that was kind of more like a silent resistance. And then the one speaker who did speak said all the right things about what, like Miriam just said, that he was a bigot, that it's harmful to our community to celebrate someone who was so harmful in the world, but it was all really beautifully done. And so that can work. It can work just if we show up and don't let them drive the narrative.
Thank you. Yes, yes. And in the follow-up email, we will, we'll get some action items around this in particular and all the other things we talked about. And we will follow up with that with everyone that was on this call and everyone that signed up. So we do have other questions. I'm looking over here because I have another screen, and our awesome Hope and Action team have been putting these questions in. So one question is, what is next if we fail now to stand for freedom of speech? I don't know who wants to take that, ACLU or, or whomever, but that was a question in the chat.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah, that's okay. So what is next if we fail now to stand for freedom of speech? What happens next?
Well, I think that we've talked about it, right? I personally, and as the ACLU of Florida, I mean, we know that free speech is the cornerstone of democracy, right? So when we see attacks on immigrant communities that are engaging in protected free speech, threatening with detention and deportation and deplorable conditions at these detention centers, and when we see our teachers, our professors, and now even a school board member under threat to be fired, and the government is basically allowing and if not celebrating that, I think it goes to show how dangerous this kind of rhetoric is. Free speech exists because it is the idea that everyone's opinions are welcome at the table, regardless of whether or not we agree with them, and that this kind of government firing or repercussions for this protected free speech is tyrannical, it's anti-democratic. And so I don't think it's a stretch to say that if we let this slide, then it basically sends a symbol to the government that they can go ahead and proceed with targeting another group, right? Today, it might be somebody commenting on Charlie Kirk. Tomorrow, it might be somebody commenting on the president. And so I think that regardless of where you stand, everyone and absolutely everyone should be concerned that the government is allowing or in any way celebrating this.
Thank you. Anyone else from the panel? That was very well said, Dariel. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I can just add that we are rapidly descending into fascism, and it does feel like now or never. We should have a very strong sense of urgency. And what does it look like if we fail? I mean, it's continuing to lose our rights. It's continuing to lose our freedoms. It's and people like me, white men, are going to be affected the least, whereas people of color, women, if you are transgender, LGBTQ, like people, the most vulnerable among us are going to continue to suffer the most and suffer first. And so we need to look out for everybody in our community, and I always want to, because I feel like it's never talked about enough, add the climate lens to this. Specifically here in South Florida, we are at ground zero. We are incredibly vulnerable, not just to sea level rise and flooding, but to extreme heat and to hurricanes that are worsening. But there are so many issues that we are going to need to deal with on our own if FEMA is not there to come and come and save us, right? Like we need to know who our community is, know who your neighbors are. Like we need to be building out those relationships and those connections so that we can be there for one another, because it's not looking good. And even and I don't want to have it be as simple as like if we fail, because oftentimes with climate it's the same thing. It's like, oh, well, what if we don't, what if we fail with climate? It's not going to be a succeed or fail. It's going to be a spectrum. And there's going to be the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, and we're going to fall somewhere in here. And like people's lives are on this spectrum. How many people can we save? And that's not just with climate, obviously, that's with everything. So I just wanted to put that perspective out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would add that this is a fascist playbook.
Yeah.
And they go for speech, and they target intellectuals, and they target creatives, and they target writers, and they target teachers, and then they go from there. But the people who are the thinkers, the knowledge producers, the creative inventors, those people make it impossible for authoritarianism to take hold. And so if we don't hold the line here with something as basic as free expression, because that's what it's called. It's not just free speech, it's free expression. If we don't hold the line here, then the playbook continues. And so, think of what art does in the world and why we need it, and what intellectuals do and why we need them, and what teachers do and why we need them, and act from there.
Thank you so much. We have only 5 minutes left. So we are going to wrap up, and I just want to encourage everyone. Tonight, we heard about letter writing campaigns. We heard about calling your legislators. We heard about attending a No Kings protest. We heard about doing counter, protests and organizing. So I know there's folks from lots of different groups here. What I want to encourage you to do is, if you know of a teacher, of a university professor, of a public servant that is being, punished or investigated or fired for something that they put on social media, please let's band together, right? And make this a coalition where we can get, we had 133 people sign up for this. So at least we know that there are numbers, and I know that really in the scope of things might not be that many, but all of that to say that there are so many different ways to plug in and to organize. And we again, I think what's important here is that we see that coordinated effort, right? And those messages, those counter messages, because right now, a lot of the messages on the right, I'm not saying they're winning, but they're out there, right? They're out there, and we see them come through on our news feeds and our social media. So that counter messaging that Dr. Leader talked about and all of our panelists talked about are so important for us individually to do as well within our networks, right? So we will send a follow-up email. I do want to just give 30 seconds to any of the panelists that would like to just say kind of a closing remark before I close out. If I know I didn't say I was going to do that, so if you're not prepared, I apologize. No worries.
Yeah, I have a really quick one. So I sent this in the chat earlier. I didn't think to include it when I gave my little speech, but there are so many legislative delegation meetings that are happening between now and legislative session, which begins next year in March. We're talking so much about writing letters and calling your legislators, but it's also important to just go and like talk to them to their face. They can't ignore you if they're sitting there and they're having this public hearing with the intention to hear from the community. A lot of times it's people with connections, it's people with business interests that show up to these delegation meetings, and it should be people that are on this call that are going to those legislative delegation meetings and saying, why the hell is this professor getting fired for making a comment that was protected speech, right? So I did drop a link for all of the upcoming delegation meetings. I'm sure we can send it in the follow-up. I'm going to be at some of the ones in Broward. I really hope to see some of you guys there.
Thank you. And we will absolutely send that. I know there's also some training around how to speak at those meetings that I saw. I believe it was through ACLU. So we'll put those in, and then we can show up as, again, that coordinated opposition or the coordinated messaging there. So thank you, Dariel, for saying that. UA Florida office, you have your hand up, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a moment if you can keep it brief, because we only have a moment.
Absolutely, brief. Thank you so much. Amazing meeting, amazing messages, guys. I'm representing UA Florida. It's a Ukrainian Association of Florida. So we Ukrainians know exactly what's gonna happen next if you fail to stand for free speech. You're gonna turn in Russia in tyranny. You're gonna be a dictator, and the horrible things gonna happen to not only to this country but to other countries too. So please follow all these nice suggestions. It's not only suggestions. It's a recipe to survive in this country, survive for this country and for this world. So thank you so much. I'm really honored to be there. Thank you.
Love on Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Okay, so as we close, I want to again say thank you to Nicholas, Dariel, Adam, Dr. Leader, as well as Jay from Boca Indivisible, all the Hope and Action folks on the back end, Juliana, Nancy, Rita, Lorraine, Janelle, Carol, G. Hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Thank you everyone for your time, your attention, your willingness to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Let's keep showing up for one another with empathy, courage, and unity. And take care, everyone. Let's keep moving forward together. You will get this recording as well as the follow-up links and all of the ideas in your email. Hopefully tomorrow. Yes, we're going to do it tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And we just appreciate everyone coming on tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you. Free speech. Be brave.
Yes.